the same skeleton that he had jerked the jawbone from. It was hard to tell how long the horse had been dead, a single year or 100 years. The desert was like that, burning the juices out of you until you were nothing but bits of leather and bone, and then preserving your pitiful remnants to the point that the ancient was new and the new was ancient, everything equally withered and dry. There was an old, dry-rotted saddle and saddle blanket with the horse's skeleton, and the Widowmaker put a boot against the saddle and gave a shove. The bones scattered and fell apart, and he could feel his own pieces falling away, creaking and popping and crumbling, no matter how hard he tried to keep himself together. A rattlesnake under the saddle, its shade disturbed, slithered through the horse skeleton's rib bones, and then coiled and posed to strike. Its unblinking eyes stared at the man-thing that had torn down its kingdom, and its tail rattles buzzed as dry and brittle as death. He ignored the rattlesnake and walked on, the jawbone in his fist swinging at his side. The hoofprints he had been following led up a canyon, so that was the way he went. The only sound in his head was the sound of his worn boot soles scraping and scuffing over the rough ground, and the slow, dull throb of his heartbeat pounding in his head. His stride was uneven and short, especially for a man of his height, but the only way to go left to him was slow. He was so tired that he couldn't tell if the heat waves had grown worse ahead of him or if it was simply that his eyes refused to focus. As it was nearing sundown when the canyon made a sharp bend to the west, around the foot of a rocky mountain point. He rounded that turn and saw a clump of palm trees against a bluff not 100 yards higher up the canyon. Such trees in the desert likely marked an oasis of some kind, a spring, tank, or some source of water below ground. He blinked once and then twice to make sure he was seeing what he was seeing. There was a trickle of smoke floating up from the campfire someone had built in that grove of palm trees. At the sight of the smoke, he forgot about the water, and he forgot about his wounds, and he gripped the jawbone in his right fist until the line of ivory teeth in it cut into his fingers. They would be up there in those palms, 7 guns or maybe more, the same men who had left him for dead out on the dunes. The jawbone scraped against the empty pistol holder on his right hip when he shifted his grip on it, and a drop of blood fell onto one of his boot toes from his bleeding hand. He started toward the palm trees in the evening dusk, making no attempt at stealth, and something hotter than the desert furnace burning in his eyes. "Leave me for dead, will you? Well, I ain't dead yet, but you're gonna wish to hell I was." Chapter 2. 6 days earlier, San Bernardino, California. Newt Jones woke with an aching back and a bad attitude. The aching back was a symptom of the sagging mattress on the jailhouse cot he had slept on, and the bad attitude was a result of the month he had spent locked up in a 10-by-10 cell. The morning sunlight shined through the single barred window at the foot of his cot and struck him full in the face, worsening his mood and causing him to squint and scowl. He was always grouchy when he first got up. He threw a forearm across his eyes to shield against the sunlight and groaned as he swung his legs off the cot and sat upright. It took him several minutes to decide whether it was worth all the trouble to get up and to come fully awake, but he finally managed to rake back his hair from his brow and settle a crumpled black hat on his head before he stood and went to the window. 4 men were crossing the street, going dead away from him, their voices receding as they went. No matter how their voices faded, they were loud enough for Newt to surmise that it had been their conversation that had woken him. Undoubtedly, they had begun their talk under his window and were now moving elsewhere. He scowled again, rubbed a pointer finger absent-mindedly along the